And that horn means you're now entering overtime here on CHSR 97.9 FM in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and online at CHSR-FM.ca. I'm your host, Johnny James. And as you can see, I am joined via Zoom chat by Kaylee Etheridge.
Hey.
And Sean Crocker.
How's it going?
And we're back. It has...
You do not understand how difficult it was to not just scream for joy the second that you were just like, and that horn means I was just waiting. I almost cut you off midstream. It was just like, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we finally have it back as we are in the midst of our quarantine, our self-isolation, whatever term you are calling it these days. So we have all finally gotten our crap together to record from home. As you can see, our various, as Kaylee flexes his Moncton Magic swag and everything.
Still the reigning and defending National Basketball League of Canada champions.
Yeah. And, so we got the home setups all ready to go here. So we're back to try and bring you what sports content we can in this time with no sports.
Our top story, everything is canceled.
Everything is like we said that at the end of the last episode that we did.
Yeah.
But now at this point in time, literally everything is there any other sports, like all the like golf and like tennis things have been canceled since then?
I remember that someone was telling me, I remember somebody was posting about it. The only two professional sports leagues, I think, globally that are still active, I think, is like Belarusian soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of them. There's like two major national sports leagues that are still playing.
Which is insane that they're even still going.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, Florida just made it so that you can still have sporting events behind closed doors. So
yeah, they made WWE like an essential thing and everything, and I think all major sports actually.
Yeah. So the official declaration was that any athletic-based entertainment product.
Okay.
And the reason why all the articles mention, the very sensationalized headline of Florida makes WWE an essential service is because it directly impacts WWE. They're doing closed-door shows at their headquarters in Florida.
Okay. Oh, so I didn't know their headquarters is in Florida, so that's convenient, I guess.
Well, their corporate headquarters is in Connecticut. Their training headquarters is in Orlando, I think.
Okay.
Well, see, after seeing that story, I was under the impression it was just a huge publicity thing for WWE and just trying to drum up some, just a little bit of good publicity right now. But and then the further we go, the more I realize, oh crap, this is actually real.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's, I believe other sports that might be allowed to continue include UFC, NASCAR.
Mm-hmm. Well, NASCAR has been doing those online things and everything.
Yes, iRacing.
The iRacing. And Dana White is doing his best to recreate the movie of Mortal Kombat, which we will talk about a little bit later on the show. Did we mentioned Japanese base? There's a Japanese baseball league, I think, that's still going too.
I
right?
don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're playing with empty stadiums.
Yeah, because there was those videos that went viral of them putting mannequins in the stands, with signs and dressed up in the team's merch and everything like that. Basically, making it look like it's a video game audience or something like that. So
that is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, why not?
Yeah, we got to do something at this point. So I guess
if award shows can use seat fillers, why can't actual sports leagues?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess we should go in. Like we have a couple. I guess we'll start off with a handful of topics that are current within the last week or so. I think the one that's probably the most significant is one that broke yesterday at the time that we're recording this. We're recording this on Saturday afternoon. Is Dustin Byfuglien of the Winnipeg Jets, who of course we know had like the dispute. Like there was some injury. It basically all stems from an ankle injury he suffered last season that he thought was going to heal over the summer, and it didn't. And then there was the holdout of like whether or not he's actually going to play and the cap implications for the Jets with that. And it seemed that there were times where it was actually escalating into like a very like ugly like situation between the league and the Players Association and Byfuglien and the team itself, which apparently it seems like there was a little bit of that, but not as much as we initially thought. Anyway, it's been something that's been hanging over the Jets the entire season because that's, was it like $6 or $7 million wrapped up in his cap hit that they could have used on their weakest part of their team, which so they did surprisingly well despite having lost Trouba and effectively Byfuglien in that time frame.
Despite having what you might loosely call an NHL defense.
Yeah, if there was an argument that term was being stretched very thin, it was with the Winnipeg Jets for sure.
I think Sean said that he pulled up a timeline before we started recording.
Yeah, so I wanted Sean, if you want to go ahead and like kind of like take us through the events to kind of refresh our memories on this, and then we'll talk about the actual termination of it as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll take you step by step here. Well, the NHLPA released a statement yesterday saying the National Hockey League and the National Hockey League Players Association announced today that the Winnipeg Jets and player Dustin Byfuglien have mutually resolved the grievance filed by Mr. Byfuglien following his suspension by the club in September 2019. Pursuant to the agreement, Byfuglien's standard players contract with the club has been terminated effective immediately. So as of yesterday, it's completely off the books. Mm-hmm. I don't know the actual conditions of what you would need to meet in order to mutually get rid of a contract.
Apparently that was sorted out between basically what from my understanding, Arash Madani and Elliot Friedman did a good segment on Sportsnet, which you can find on their YouTube channel, about what kind of like took so long and basically why we didn't really hear it addressed about it from like Cheveldayoff or anyone from the Jets organization, was that basically like it was like they were going to sort out the terms of terminating it, whether it would have like cap recapture penalties or other implications long term on the Jets franchise, and that was something that had to be sorted out between the league itself and the Players Association. So the Jets weren't really involved in that process at all when it came to the actual termination of the contract.
This just isn't a thing that happens.
No.
Yeah, like what we saw. I guess this year we saw it a few times. We saw it with Ilya Kovalchuk and the LA Kings eventually going to Montreal. Patrick Berglund a few years ago. It's not very common, but when it does happen, like it has to be like some sort of mutual agreement.
Yeah, and basically, like in short terms, at least according to what Friedman said, is that there's no cap recapture penalties on Winnipeg. The cap hit that was invested in Byfuglien is free for them to use whenever the league starts up again and whenever they can make those transactions and everything. And there's no recapture penalty, and Byfuglien is no longer has any ties to any NHL team and is effectively a free agent. So, Sean, back to your timeline.
Yeah. So, well, it started on the 11th of September. So it was the night before NHL training camps opened up, and Dustin Byfuglien had notified Kevin Cheveldayoff, the general manager of the Jets, that he was considering not returning for the time being. Now here they have courtesy of Sportsnet.ca for this timeline. but they said it was an emotional conversation. They asked Byfuglien if he wanted to trade. He said no. So he wanted to remain with the organization. Then the next day they slept on it, and with training camp opening, Kevin Cheveldayoff and Paul Maurice met with Dustin Byfuglien, and at that point that was where we were left in the dark, because Paul Maurice said it's going to stay private throughout the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So it really kind of got a little awkward in October, when it was the moment that the Jets were hoping for, that Byfuglien said he wanted to have surgery on that ankle that was damaged in the previous season that didn't heal. Mm-hmm. So the Jets were hoping for that, because it would give them some sort of cap recapture where they would be allowed to use that $7.8 million that Byfuglien left behind.
Well, he would have been able to go on LTIR if he had gotten surgery and was officially listed as a long-term injury.
Yeah, and they also wanted a situation where they would either be able to put the contract on LTIR, or be able to suspend the contract, which is the route that they went. They essentially suspended Byfuglien's contract, so that comes off the cap until Byfuglien reports to camp. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like it was a bit of a mutual agreement. October 10th was the Jets' home opener, and Byfuglien and his agent Ben Hankinson met with Kevin Cheveldayoff again and reaffirmed Byfuglien's intent to return after recovering from surgery. Mm-hmm. And finally, on October 23rd, Byfuglien had his surgery. So it was done by a doctor that Byfuglien had seen the year prior as part of a medical evaluation to that ankle. So he went to a doctor who was relatively familiar with that. And then a month later, on November 20th, the NHLPA files a grievance against the suspension of Byfuglien's contract. And I think that all this was in place like for formality reasons. You know, you have to file the grievance against suspension. And for the Jets, it was so quiet. Like, you just had no clue what was up. You didn't know if it was a rift with the team. Like, we just had no idea.
Yeah. And now, like I mentioned before, we know that it was basically the league and the Players Association doing their due diligence to negotiate a mutual termination of the contract. And I think that's really good. And of course, the Jets put up a really good tribute video on their Twitter thanking Byfuglien for his time, which I guess you could say that like he was one of the faces of like the reinvigoration of the franchise. Like everyone like if you say Winnipeg Jets, like who do you think of in the modern era? Like at the beginning of it, like I guess I'm not sure how long it was until Scheifele came along, but like for the most part it was Byfuglien.
Scheifele was their first draft pick. I know that.
Yeah, Scheifele. Yeah. Really, the guys that were there from the Byfuglien came from Atlanta. I don't think Blake Wheeler quite did just yet.
I'm not sure.
But I remember like the big thing about the Jets when the team first moved was that they had like that dynamic duo on defense. Was that they had Dustin Byfuglien, this like very gifted offensive defenseman, and also Tobias Enstrom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, who was probably like terribly underrated in his own right.
Yeah, for sure. But like Dustin Byfuglien, like there's very few players who like he made the transition from forward to defense
and
back over the course of his career. So like definitely one of the more versatile players in the league's history. Sean, could you pull up Byfuglien's numbers?
Yeah,
currently?
Absolutely.
Because there is talk. Friedman mentioned in that segment that I was talking about earlier that there is a chance that like Byfuglien might not come back at this point, because a lot of talk has been about that he didn't want to go through playing through a lot of pain through the season. Now, how well that surgery is done for him with his ankle, I'm not sure. I know he's had a little bit of concussion issues in the past as well, but there's definitely some question about like his willingness to go through the grind of a full season. And Friedman was also like talking about like Byfuglien is like a different kind of character that like he wasn't like a highly touted prospect. He's definitely someone who like was like a bit of a late bloomer. Definitely like just took advantage of an opportunity and ran with it farther than he probably thought he could at the beginning of his pro career.
Yeah, because I remember one of the big stories about him and Tobias Enstrom is, weren't they both drafted in like a round that doesn't even exist anymore, like the 8th or 9th round, something like that?
Yeah, it was something stupid.
Yeah, because I think they cut it off at 7 now. Like,
yeah, 7.
I think that like sometimes they would go to like 8, 9, or even 10 rounds or something like that.
I think they even used to have like 13, like way back.
Yeah, because I know like players like I think Andrew Hammond, the Hamburglar, was like the last pick, and he was like 256 overall or something like that. So that would be like 12 or 13 rounds or something. I'm not sure if my math is correct on that, but
I think there's 210 in 7 rounds.
Okay.
So it would be like the 8th or 9th.
He would have been like an 8th or 9th round pick.
8th or 9th round pick.
And as far as Byfuglien's stats go, like outside of his first 2 seasons, in his age 20 and 21 seasons, every season after that, he topped 30 points. He topped the 50-point marker 5 times and the 47 times.
So what's his actual stat line, like games played, G's, A's?
Games played, he has 528 games played, 102 goals, and 261 assists for 363 in points.
That's pretty good.
That's
penalty minutes, 733.
That is an extremely respectable career for a guy who was, at different points in his career, a goon, a power forward, and an offensive defenseman.
Yeah. Like basically
the thing that I like, a lot of people probably don't take into account, he was a very big guy. Like, he's 6'5", 260 pounds, and he averaged 24 minutes a night throughout his career. That is ridiculous to be lugging that around.
Yeah. Physically,
a lot of beef.
Role-wise, and playing style-wise, Byfuglien's everything that Dustin Byfuglien embodies are the dying breeds in hockey. And he was able to like mix all of those into a very
the thing about his career. The thing about his career too is that they were a dying breed before his career was up, and you saw the transition in his own game. Because when he was in Chicago, he was the muscle on the ice when Taves and Kane were on the ice to keep them protected from everybody else.
And the screen in front of Roberto Luongo, as you will remember.
Yeah, so I heard that Luongo bought his Netflix subscription because they paid for advertising space on Dustin Byfuglien's butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, and then once that kind of power forward didn't need to exist anymore, he transitioned back to playing defense, which was his original position before he broke into the NHL. And what was his best season in Winnipeg, Sean?
Best season in Winnipeg, like point-wise, or just like all around?
I mean, judge it yourself.
That would be 2013-14. He topped 56 points, and as a defenseman, 20 goals.
Yeah.
It's not too shabby at all, and that was one of 2 times he reached 20 goals. The other time was with the Atlanta Thrashers.
Again, asking the question, what was his draft position?
Doesn't say here on Hockey Reference.
Was he undrafted?
No, he definitely went. I'll take a look.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he got picked the pick immediately before Tobias Enstrom, which is what them meeting up in Atlanta was such a big deal about.
Mm-hmm.
Was that they were like the absurdly late picks that were like literally one after the other. Just
45th overall. Let's see where Enstrom falls here. And Enstrom was picked at 239, and Byfuglien was 245.
Okay, so 6 picks apart.
So 6 picks apart.
Is that the 8th round?
Yeah, round 8. So a non-existent round.
That round does not exist anymore. And the Thrashers /Jets got an all-star pair of defensemen out of it.
And other guys drafted a round later, Yaroslav Halak, Matt Molson.
Which draft was that?
2003. Ooh, wait, was this actually 03? So the really deep one.
Yeah.
Yeah, 03.
Mm-hmm. So basically, like when you're looking at Byfuglien's career in a retrospect here, like he definitely doesn't have the numbers of someone that you would immediately class as like a first or even maybe a second ballot Hall of Famer or anything like that. But considering like the degree of difficulty his career and how many times he had to adapt and reinvent himself with the game going along to keep a job in the NHL, because if he was to stay the same kind of player that he was in Chicago through his Winnipeg years, they might have traded him a long time ago, or maybe seen him as not as valuable of an asset. But he was able to do that, along with like having that physical role. Pretty sure a really strong leadership role, like through that really strong playoff run that the Jets had a couple years ago. And it's just a very unique player and probably one that we won't see again for a long time.
No. And that's the thing, is that he's a household name because he was a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
He was a goon. He was a power forward. He was an offensive defenseman. He was your leader. I don't think he ever wore a C, but I'm sure he was an assistant captain for most of his playing time in Atlanta and Winnipeg. You know, he could lay the body. He could score. You know, like when people were first starting to adapt like 4 forwards on the power play, the Thrashers and the Jets never needed to, because having Byfuglien as your defenseman was essentially playing a fourth forward.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. And so, I mean, a successful career, and we don't even know if he's done.
Yeah, it's one of those things, too, where you look at his numbers and you think a little bit. Like, Korea was a point-per-game forward who got in with, like, less than 1,000 games played because his career got derailed by injuries. If Byfuglien could come back and rally up a couple more, like, 40 or 50-point seasons, to the point where he's at like 850 games played and let's say like 600 points, 550 points. If we know that his career is ending because his legs are screwed up, you then have to start asking yourself the question of, if he could have continued that pace, if he weren't injured, also if he weren't undervalued for the early part of his career because he was drafted so late, you know, what kind of conversation is he in now?
Yeah, for sure. How old is he, Sean?
35.
35. And
so if he sticks around, then the team signing him will have that 35 plus clause in the contract, where if he retires, then the team retains the cap hit. So you got to be a little careful there.
Yeah, and if like what were his last 3 seasons point total wise?
They were actually pretty good. Well, not bad. He was on a steady decline. In 16-17, he recorded 52 points, followed by 45. And then last season, in 2018-19, he had 31 points, but only 42 games played.
That's
so
really good.
He might have hit 70 that year. He might have had a Brent Burns like here.
I would not be shocked if a team with deep pockets takes a chance on like a 2-year contract.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be cheaper because like there's injuries and age for fact. He's not going to make $6 or $7 million.
No.
But like
I think a team that could still stomach having to eat like $1.5 million in salary if he doesn't come back.
Yeah. You take Byfuglien on like 2 years at like 4.5?
Like 2.25 per?
No, like 4.5 each year.
See, I don't know if anyone's going to make him that offer at 35 after missing an entire season due to ankle surgery.
Yeah, you think it's going to be even lower than that?
I think people are going to be cautious just because we've seen what happens if someone suffers like a foot and ankle injury and they're a defenseman, where like, especially where a lot of Byfuglien's game is skating and hitting, right? Like Carlson's game is just skating, and he was one of the most abysmal starring defensemen in the league. Yeah,
and like Carlson, like skills-wise, is definitely a stronger skater than Byfuglien was. Yeah. And you don't have the fact that like Byfuglien's just a heavier guy. As you progress, like that's gonna That's
Yeah.
going to be a factor.
I think that you might see someone do like 2x3 maybe.
Yeah.
Especially if the team could afford like a recapture penalty if he retires, if he just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one possibility I think it would be really risky for them is the Toronto Maple Leafs. It would be really risky.
I was actually going to say that exact same thing. Is Toronto has pockets that are deep enough.
If you can get him for 1 year, my only worry, though, is that if he retires, then they have to recapture the cap, and they're already pretty strapped to begin with. It's risky, but it's a gamble that could pay off. Maybe, I could see maybe someone like Tyson Barrie going to Winnipeg and then Byfuglien coming back to Toronto, and then the virtual swap.
Yeah, that'll all depend on like how the caps and the salaries are going to look after the impact of the pandemic and everything. So whether it stays flat or there's a significant drop, it might actually work. Like it might be a better possibility if there's a significant drop, because if it's a drop of like 5 million plus, then compliance buyouts are probably going to come into effect, where teams are going to be given an option where they can like get out of some cash if they were already up against the cap to begin with. So, yeah. But no,
and I don't think that they've ruled out the possibility of salary rollbacks.
Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. So, but like, no, I think like there's definitely a chance like that there's still an NHL job for Byfuglien in the future if he wants it. If he wants it.
And I mean, like, if he decides that now is the time to ride off into the sunset, which I mean, maybe he does. He's played 500 games and he's a big hitting dude. He has a cup ring and a lot of fond memories, and I think that Jets fans in particular will always be fond of him.
Yeah, and has probably made a lot more money than he probably bet on himself making as an 8th round draft pick in the NHL.
And the other thing about it too is I think that part of Byfuglien's sort of mystique with Winnipeg is that a lot of people are going to like him because he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
You know, he's a boy from northern Minnesota. He wanted to play for Manitoba for Winnipeg because they were close to his actual home.
Yep.
So he wanted to be like, there aren't very many players in the NHL that you can go to and are just like, yes, I want to go live in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see how they remember him, because you remember back in the day when they had Evander Kane and he had that whole situation throwing his tracksuit in the shower. And then they had that one series where he picked up 2 guys. What was that one? Was that one against Vegas? You know the one I'm talking about, right? It was a full-on like brawl near the net, and Byfuglien just picked up 2 guys, one with each arm.
And like threw them away or something
that.
Yeah. So there's lots of compilations of him doing very muscular Gronk things to multiple players at the same time. So
I think that's how he'll be remembered.
Did you just mention Gronk things like Rob Gronkowski, current WWE 24/7 champion?
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. I guess the other notable NHL thing right now is Andrei Markov. He wasn't still playing at the time. He was probably playing over in Europe this past year.
I think he was playing in the K.
Okay.
I know that when the Habs did their memoriam, like not memoriam, that makes it sound like he's dead, but his like retrospective, the picture they put up on their feed showed every different jersey he'd worn as a professional, and it's literally like Habs jersey as a kid, European team jersey, KHL jersey, Team Russia jersey, Habs jersey as an old man, Team Russia jersey as an old man, KHL jersey.
Yeah. So where was he playing, Sean?
Doesn't say here. Like his whole lineage stops at 2016-17 with Montreal.
So maybe he was just retired.
So yeah, maybe he was just on the sidelines. But it's kind of weird how it went down though, because even in his last season, he was like an above average possession player, which I mean that probably wasn't taken as much into account then. But he still posted 36 points in 62 games.
I mean, yeah, but the man's like in his 40s.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand why Montreal wouldn't even give him like a basic contract. But then again, I think he was pressing for term.
Maybe.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think the term was the big thing there, which is a shame because like, I just feel like he should have had a more like kind of definitive end to his career because like he's one of like the modern day like a lifetime Hab and like one of the faces that you consistently associate with that organization throughout the last 20 years.
That's a thing that I think we now appreciate in a very nostalgic sense now is that there aren't that many lifetime players in the NHL.
Yeah.
Like once Jumbo Joe retires, who I consider a lifetime Shark. I know he played for the Bruins for a little while, but let's be real. But even if we take Jumbo Joe out of it and then Marleau left to go play for Toronto, but like who's left? The Sedin's retired, Markov's now retired. After Crosby, Backstrom, Ovechkin, Taves, and Kane retire, and I guess Quick, are there going to be, and Copen are single team players that are going to be left?
Well, again, no, because he had a pretty prominent career as like a Sen beforehand. I was going to say Chara. Like it's hard. Like there used to be a time where you could pick. Oh, Bergeron.
Marchand.
Yeah.
I guess that whole thing.
We don't know for Marchand. He's still in his 20s.
Yeah. Oh, he's older than 20s.
No, he's 31.
Is he 31?
Is he 31?
Yeah. Because he was he was like a rookie or a sophomore.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because
he was, yeah, that's true. Because he was a rookie on the 2011 Cup team.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like Markov, like just throughout like the year, like he's probably like the most
laugh, I guess.
Getzlaf, yeah, that's true.
But there just aren't very many of them anymore. Like staying on one team your entire career is not a thing.
Yeah, because like the NHL like is just like, well, first of all, like the longer term like 12, 13-year deals and stuff like that are illegal now. You can't do that. And the other factor is that like there's been consistent cap growth, and like if you lock down one player for 6 or 7 years at a term that works for your team, if he performs and exceeds those expectations, chances are you're not going to be able to afford him the next. And that's why it's getting closer and closer to what like the NHL financially wants. And they definitely would have been on track to like get there someday if it wasn't for the current situation we're facing. Is to get more like the NBA, where like it's rare that players stay for more than a contract term, and it's rare that those contracts are more than 2 to 4 years.
Well, I think salary cap complications also affect that too, because GMs are becoming so calculated with what they do, and they're nickel and diming over $500,000,
Mm-hmm.
and because that could be the difference between having to pay overages and not.
Yeah, and
so,
if you're
like every bit counts.
Yeah, and if you're GMs like Kyle Dubas, who literally have one of the guys that wrote the CBA, you're doing illegal stuff so you can just stay underneath the cap. So.
Yeah, and I think the reason why everyone understands the value of money now is that we've seen that the most successful teams are teams that have like a core 6, and then their bottom 6, they don't necessarily spend money on. It's usually like you have like a high value minimum cost bottom 6, like a big 5, and then one like rookie or under contract player that overachieves for you.
Yeah.
And those are the teams that are successful. So I think a lot of GMs now care about like that last $750,000 or $1 million, because is that extra $750,000 or $1 million the fourth liner or third liner that puts you over the top?
Yeah, and like look at like arguably one of the most successful teams over the past 10 years, the Penguins. Who has been better at spending $750,000 in this league than the Pittsburgh Penguins? Anybody?
Chicago Blackhawks.
And they probably have been the best team over the past 10 years. So,
and although the thing is, like, We just talked about it. Having players overachieve and having cheap contracts overperform for you. The Blackhawks. We just talked about Dustin Byfuglien.
Yeah. Talk about guys like I guess, was Andrew Ladd signed to a contract? I guess that might not be a best example for the Blackhawks or something like that. But anyways, like spending those like cheap contracts and finding diamonds in the rough with those, finding your Brian Rusts and everything like that is like, that's what makes you successful in this league.
It is.
Time to
It's how
time.
you win.
Yeah.
I mean, the Canucks, when they picked up Josh Levo off waivers,
Mm-hmm.
he's making a couple million now, but, you know, the first 2 years they got out of him during the rebuild, he was making nothing.
Yeah.
And arguably for the production he put out for the Canucks, he's still making nothing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and that just goes to show the value of going and trading for these guys. Like, while they're still on their entry levels, they're still making close to league min.
Yeah. Which is, again, like, it's the underrated value of, like, getting back to Markov here and everything like that, is that, like, you don't have players making that long-term, like, emotional commitment or investment in a team anymore. Like the
And
way
the thing is, it's not even in a team either. It's sort of in the city when you make that long-term investment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is, I think that the Habs would have had another defenseman doing the same thing if they didn't get fed up with him and trade him to Nashville.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, PK Subban. Yeah, for sure. So as far as any other hockey news, I guess the last thing we have to touch on hockey-wise is Bill Peters, who of course was one of the NHL coaches kind of outed in the first dark time of this season earlier this year, when there was the of course, like, Akeem Malou made those racism allegations against him, which were confirmed by multiple parties. And
What was that? Was that our number 2 story of the year last year?
yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Number
No, it was the number 3.
No,
because,
it was 3. Bianca Andreescu was 2, right?
and Raptors were 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Last year. Yeah. Anyway, he has signed with bringing up the name of the team here because I
Was
don't
it
have.
Locomotive?
No, Mobilist.
I gotta
Oh.
Yeah, Avtomobilist, which is, I believe, Datsuk's KHL team.
Yeah, I think his contract's up this year, though.
Yeah, and I think Nigel Dawes is on that team as well. Like, there are a handful of NHLers
That's a name.
on there.
You-
And
Nigel Dawes? You mean great Kazakhstani Olympian Nigel Dawes?
yeah, yes, indeed. And I believe, I think Peter Holland as well, if he's not still playing in the NHL. I think there's some, like, former, like, old Leaf or something like that playing there. So, yeah, so he has signed a 2-year deal with them. I'm not sure for how much. But yeah, like, even if, like, I'm not sure if he would have still gotten an NHL job, because a lot of people pointed out, like, character and ethical issues aside with Bill Peters, he's won nothing when it comes to his NHL career. It's been one failed season or failed term with a team after another. I think the only success he had, I think he got to, like, a Memorial Cup final with whatever junior team he coached or something like that. But other than that, it's been not a lot of success at the NHL level. So this might have been coming for him regardless of the situation at hand, but maybe came a little bit faster because of it.
What Johnny is saying, audience, just so you understand, is that his whole previous allegations don't matter. The most important thing is that he's a bad coach.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like, not NHL caliber character-wise or behind the bench. So
No. And there's no evidence to think that was ever going to change either.
No, it certainly wasn't with Calgary. It, as a matter of fact, they got slightly better without him, I guess. But yeah. It was
They
still.
went on a run with Jeff Ward for a little bit there, but yeah, that was more or less the post coach firing boost.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk football. Before we make Kaylee angry.
And we not.
No, we could talk about one thing.
Death of the XFL.
Oh, we didn't talk about the death of the XFL. We'll talk about that too here in a second. But we're trying to keep away. Obviously, we want to focus on like what little sports news we have and not talk enough about like the fearfulness and the worries behind COVID-19. But with the NFL, we had kind of our most high-profile diagnosis of a confirmed case, and that's with Von Miller.
Yeah. Yeah, dude's like a generational talent.
Mm-hmm.
And we see, this is the thing that's frustrating, is that the NHL has kept their confirmed cases very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some mixed information from the NBA where they've sort of told us sometimes and sort of haven't other times. But the Broncos were completely open about it. And Von Miller himself did like a press conference from his home, I think, yesterday that I haven't seen yet. But he took it upon himself to do one himself from his home while he was isolating with COVID-19. So,
yeah. And I think I saw some tweets from that. I think it's basically just saying that he was in good spirits and like he's not feeling like super ill of the effects, but even though despite the fact like he is infected with it. So like it sounds like he's kind of on like he has it, but it's not a severe form that's like he's worrying for his life or anything like that at this point. But maybe like just something we could kind of branch off from this. Like of course we've and you mentioned, Kaylee, like the NHL's keeping their cases quiet while others are like deciding to be very open, like the NBA and the NFL and everything. Where do we stand on like just should all teams be like disclosing the players that are infected, or like is it like should we really like respect the privacy on this one, or is there I don't know. I got kind of mixed feelings about this. I want to know what you guys think.
I'll let Sean go first.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite get the question there.
Like, should teams, do they have like an obligation to disclose like the specific players that are being diagnosed with COVID-19, or does it matter whether they're kept under wraps or not?
Well, it's a really interesting issue because like we see in Canada, like with Ottawa Senators players contracting the virus, and they didn't release it because, I mean, I assume it's something to do with privacy laws in Canada and how they're a little different than in the United States. Mm-hmm. But I think in a way you do need to, like, we do need to respect the privacy of the player. I think that we need to understand that these people have families, but also on the same level, we're talking about a huge public health crisis where, like, we need to know who's infected in order to fight this battle. But that being said, I don't think it's necessary because if they're infected, they shouldn't be out and about anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that, for the record, I agree with Sean, which is that I don't think we have any right to know. He mentioned that maybe Ottawa wasn't disclosing because, like, rules are a little different in Canada, but the Avalanche didn't disclose either.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, like, this show, we have made a point of being very pro players are people. They're not just pieces of meat for our entertainment. Yeah. And it would feel extremely hypocritical of me to say now, you know, we should know whether or not they're sick. Like, I don't get why the NHL being all like, yes, we have X. I think the only thing about it that I think makes it weird to us is that usually it's the other thing that we don't hear about.
What do you mean?
Usually we hear the player's name and then we hear illness, upper body injury, lower body injury.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing weird for us as people who follow sports and who have reported on and worked with sports media is that we're used to hearing the player and then not what they actually have.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's very weird to hear we have 2 players that have contracted this deadly virus. And I think that's just a weird thing for us to hear. Touching my face too much for a video that's going up on YouTube.
Setting a bad example.
I know. Don't be like me, kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's fine. The players, like, I think that early on, when it was like Rudy Gobert and I forget who the other guy was from the Jazz.
Mitchell.
Yes. Donovan Mitchell. I think then they had an obligation to tell people, because within the incubation period, Gobert had been signing autographs and meeting people, hanging with teammates, taking interviews with reporters. God, that clip aged terribly for Rudy Gobert. I actually feel really bad for the guy, because he was trying to like make a self-deprecating joke to make light of a very serious situation. And that clip of him touching all the microphones will live in infamy forever now.
Yeah. But I was gonna mention, like, what you're saying here is that, like, if there was risk of fan contact, they should know who those players were for self-isolation purposes. And like,
but I think that generally, now that we're in the stage where everyone's been separated from athletes for long enough that there's very minimal risk of contraction, I don't think that the teams have any obligation other than maybe informing, living partners, people they may have interacted with.
Yeah.
Because I know that because there was like a lot of uncertainty about this, and a lot of players don't live in the city that they play in, that a lot of players, because of how stay-in-place orders and stuff have worked, are now living together, riding this out. Like, I know that Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner are living together in Toronto, for example. Even though I'm pretty sure Austin's actual condo is in Arizona.
It's actually with Freddie.
Is it with Freddie?
Yeah. Him and Freddie are just apparently chilling poolside. What we wish we could all be doing.
But I don't think there's really an obligation for them to tell us. I think as fans, we sort of want to know also, because like we invest a lot in these teams. So we want to know, like, is it our favorite players who are sick? But we don't really have a right to know that.
Yeah, it's more of like a selfish, like, curiosity reasons and everything like that.
And I think that that's a better thing too, because we know that, and I'm not saying that any of them are, but we know that in serious cases of COVID-19, people can suffer permanent lung damage. It's information that's out there.
Yeah.
The last thing that we need is the 24-hour sports media cycle, which is still churning, just not having a lot to report about, a lot of speculation. The last thing we want to do is give them a piece of meat that a star player is sick, and then to start having them run off with this narrative of like, oh, this person is very seriously sick and has been admitted to hospital. Will lung damage destroy their career?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we don't need that in the media right now. And
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I never thought that I could do that.
And that's the thing is, like, I give Von Miller a lot of credit for this, because he sort of come out and said, up to this point, I think he's the highest profile athlete to be confirmed with COVID. I know there's a couple European soccer stars that have as well, but he essentially had the team come out and announce that he had it and said, I'm doing a press conference. I want to tell the fans that I am okay. And I think that there's a lot of credit to be given to that, because he's the face of that franchise.
And also, like, he's taking on the added risk, like, when his next contract negotiation comes up, they're definitely going to ask about that. If he has any existing effects of COVID-19, especially if it's in the next year or two. I'm not sure, like, what kind of contract he's signed to.
I don't know Von Miller's contract situation either. Like, Sean can look it up if he wants to. But
Well,
the thing is, I don't think that's playing a factor either, because he's also being upfront about it with the team.
Yeah,
and
that's
from
true.
the sounds of it, he doesn't have a serious case, which is, excellent news. Totally happy about that. But I think there's a certain degree where it matters and it doesn't matter. Like, if, oh God, I'm trying to think about like players that if Jay Beagle had COVID, Canucks fans, I don't think really have a right to know. But I think if like Pedersen contracted COVID, fans would argue that they have a right to know, and you don't in either case, I think.
Okay.
I think the only possible case is that, like, maybe investors, if the leagues have investors, have a certain right to know, because if a star player gets sick, it might affect their financial investment in a team or a league. But
like they would probably still be notified anyway, because like the team organization definitely knows who it is. It's
yeah,
just not the
and
public.
the team also has to like then go back over XYZ sort of thing. And, you know, I guarantee you the team itself has kind of gone back and been like, hey, you know, now that Vaughn's contracted it, what have you been doing? You know, Vaughn Miller's probably been training in his own apartment, or maybe going to a team-sponsored training facility. That facility, if it exists, I'm just speculating here, would have to be disinfected, would have to be, you know, like there's layers to this whole thing. But I don't think anybody has the right to know if any individual person has COVID-19.
Yeah.
Also, Von Miller's contract is up in 2022 with a team option in 2021.
Which they will take.
So, yeah, so it's coming.
Like one of the best players in the league at this position, if not the best.
Yeah, so it's coming soon.
Yeah. The only other argument that like popped up in my head like while we're talking about this is like if like these players have like been like in contact with like, I don't know, someone delivering them food or something like that, but like you would hope that in a situation like this the team's handlers would have people that they pay in the organization like doing those things for them.
But even if they don't, that is not really a team issue. That becomes a health authority issue, because then the health authority has to do contact tracing. Well, who have you had contact with in the past, Von Miller? Oh, well, I had this food delivered to me by a grocery delivery service. Okay, does the service name the delivery driver? Yes, they have to go back to that driver. Does that driver test positive? If he tests positive, you know, where did he pick up the groceries from?
Yeah.
You know.
So basically, like, long story short, that communication can be done without putting it out in the general media for all to know.
Yeah, because it's not – he just becomes a number. Like, Colorado's state health authority has +1 positive cases of COVID-19. Are you doing contact tracing that case? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
People don't need to know the rest. You might get a public alert being like, hey, one of our cases was contact traced back to this app or this service or this restaurant. And then they make a public health notice that people who went know that they need to isolate or maybe get tested. But that's just how it works. You don't have to make that information public. If Von Miller hadn't had the Broncos tell people that he was sick, the rest of that would have all happened regardless.
I think it's a good place to end on that. We got a couple minutes left in our radio portion before we go to our YouTube only portion.
Fight Island, fight Island, fight Island.
No, we have about like 5 minutes before we have to cut it off at the radio portion.
Okay,
here.
so we're gonna save Fight Island for the YouTube portion where profanity is allowed.
Yes. The XFL, Kaylee.
Yeah, so that's really disheartening. We knew from investors that they were expecting to lose money for their first year or two while they established the product, and then like not even halfway through the season. I think about exactly halfway through the season, they just end up losing. It shuts down. They lose all available income. We'd start like of the 8 franchises, we were starting to see like which ones were really viable and which ones probably weren't going to be viable long term. But like they needed critical information from the first season, and to lose essentially half of your revenue, more than half, because you lose half a season and your playoffs, to lose more than half your revenue. It's just it's extremely disheartening. It sinks the league before the league ever gets to get off the ground, and the owners of it already knew it was going to lose money. So,
and it's like it ruins a really good story. Like a lot of good stories that are kind of being ruined by the current situation is that like the XFL was a league that was like joked about and like said like, oh, this was handled so poorly and executed so poorly the first time around. And they, as far as their end and their responsibility of it, like they executed on all the things they got wrong the first time. And then like, it literally feels like the brand is cursed now because like they rectified everything they screwed up the first time. but they still end up going bankrupt and end up with the same result off of something that is completely out of their power and control.
Something you also couldn't have predicted either, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Like I think if they had come into this season and the financial projections were worse than they were expecting, that's something you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sudden shutdown is a very different issue.
Yeah. So where does it stand right now? Like I know that they filed for bankruptcy. Is there any shred of hope of them like recovering from this if someone else buys it, or like what would need to happen? Would there need to be new investors, or?
I don't think there's any saving this incarnation of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I would not be shocked if they're filing for bankruptcy and obviously for bankruptcy protection, if in like 2 or 3 years we just see them give this another shot.
Yeah.
Because the foundation this time was good.
Yeah, they literally like they got the franchise like sports league equivalent of someone kicking the chair right out from underneath you. Yeah.
And like it makes me worry for other fledgling sports leagues that are like starting to come into province. The Canadian Premier League, which started last year, is one that I'm really worried about this year. They're about to go into their second season. You know, Canada finally has its own top tier of the soccer pyramid. You know, there's discussions about us reclaiming the teams that are playing in the lower American levels. Is there any possibility in the future that we can take, you know, a TFC away from Major League Soccer and bring them into our Premier League? Like those conversations, like the first year was so successful that those were the conversations people were having. And then, you know, they've had to postpone their training camps and postpone the league. And then there's this worry that that's another league that's going to get shut down before it ever really gets a chance to get off the ground.
Yeah. Have we heard anything on that front from them?
David Klanichan, who's the commissioner, has already come out and said that the league intends to play its entire 2020 season.
Mm-hmm.
They will start it when it is advisable under health authorities, and they will play it to completion regardless of when that completion is.
Okay. So nothing on like their financial standing?
No, nothing yet.
Okay.
They've essentially said that the plan was for them to start in, I think, April or May and go until the fall. If they don't get to start until September, they're going to do what a lot of leagues around the world do, and they're going to play winter soccer.
All right.
Which for some teams will be rough.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Very true.
HFX in Halifax in particular, where their stadium is a pop-up stadium made out of shipping containers, that one will be rough.
Yeah. Anyway, with that, that is where we will end the radio portion here on Overtime on CHSR 97.9 FM in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and online at CHSR-FM.ca. For those listening just on radio, we will see you on Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. We're going to keep it going from quarantine, and but if you want to keep listening, head over to our YouTube page, which is called Overtime Radio. Is that what we got it?
I think CHSR?
Yeah, youtube.com/user/overtime CHSR.
Yeah, I believe that's what we got it there, and you'll be able to listen to the rest of the show. So
Double
if
overtime.
you want to, yeah, double overtime, and expect more longer shows in the future. So goodbye from the radio, and we'll be back with the YouTube audience in just a second. Cheers. And we're back on with those who are listening online and on YouTube and whatnot. And if you are listening on YouTube, you can see that Kaylee has some new boudoir for our first edition of Double Overtime, our extended podcast version of the show. What is that? What is that, Kaylee?
This is my Philadelphia Union supporter scarf.
Okay. What's
they're a soccer team? Let the booze rain down. Yeah, they play in the Eastern Conference of MLS.
Oh, okay.
Let the booze rain down. No, I don't support TFC in any way other than that I'm Canadian and they're sort of Canada's team.
Mm-hmm. What's your allegiance to Philadelphia then?
I've actually seen a couple games down there. I used to make regular trips to Delaware. So while I was down in the area, I wanted to go see an MLS game live. You know that I'm really big into soccer, and the fans would know that too. So I went, and literally the first game that I was there, I wanted to go down early just to like be there with the tailgating atmosphere. And I got there, and the first thing that I was involved in, despite not having been to a game before, it wasn't like an altercation, but it was essentially like a cheer off between the official supporters section of the Philadelphia Union and like an unofficial supporters section for the Philadelphia Union.
Okay.
Because the supporters section for the Philadelphia Union is called the Sons of Ben, because Ben Franklin, Philadelphia.
Oh,
and then there's a secondary supporters group called the Illegitimates.
Okay.
Get it? Because they're not the Sons of Ben, they're the illegitimate Sons of Ben.
Oh, okay.
And the Illegitimates have like not a bad reputation. I don't want to like paint these guys with a bad brush, because they were amazing people to watch a game with, but their whole shtick is that they buy seats around the away fan section because the MLS requires that so many tickets be set aside for traveling fans or for fans who live in other cities. And they buy the Illegitimates. The Sons of Ben don't care. They have a supporter section in the stadium where they go nuts and bang drums and smoke and soccer.
Yeah.
The Illegitimates buy all the seats around the away supporter section and essentially try to drown them out.
Okay.
And these are Philadelphia sports fans, so they're about as obnoxious as they can conceivably be.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes it a lot of fun if you're with them, and probably not a lot of fun if you're not.
Yeah. Well, there's reasons why you have to put like coverings over like the away tunnels and everything like that to keep people from throwing stuff at you and everything like that. And even still, they'll beat on them with hockey sticks or baseball bats or something like that.
But like
whatever they can find.
Philly sports fans are insane, and I've never had more fun than watching a couple games in Philadelphia.
Nice. Awesome. So getting back into this second part of the show, we need to let Kaylee rant, as we often do on this show, about the coach and now general manager of his beloved Houston Texans.
Wait, I want to give the moment some proper like gravitas and some silence, because I'm going to do something I don't think any of us have done in any variation of this show.
Mm-hmm. And why are you uttering these expletives, Kaylee?
So obviously there's some smaller assets involved, but essentially the Houston Texans have traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals, I believe, for running back Duke Johnson.
Yep. You are correct.
Shoot me.
Yeah. So
I can't show you. I was going to grab my phone and show you the text message, but I am using my phone as the base point for recording because I don't currently have a computer. I got the news report for the trade, and I immediately texted my oldest friend, who is an Eagles fan, who got me into the NFL, and I messaged him and asked him if it was too late to become an Eagles fan.
Oh, Jesus. Really contemplating throwing your weight behind those Philly sports teams, eh, Kaylee?
I've never been – I'm one of those people who believes that once you pick a team, you stick to that team. And realistically, I haven't really stuck to this team. I don't follow MLS a lot outside of following like TFC, Impact, Whitecaps, because those are the games we get generally. And I don't have my reason for traveling down there anymore. So – like, I do still consider myself a supporter, but I'm way more into the Canadian Premier League now that it's been spawned. And a lot of my reporting has been about Toronto or Montreal. So I feel like I have a closer connection to those teams, but just I am one of those people who's like very ride or die about teams. I hate people who say this is my team, and then a few years later they've changed teams. Like I detest it. Unless there's there's some reasons that I give a pass for, like, my stepfather was a Jets fan because he was born in Manitoba. When they moved, he became a Senators fan.
And he stuck with it even though they came back?
No, when they came back, he chose to re-become a Jets fan because he had the Jets back. which doesn't bother me. See, I'm fine with stuff like that. Like, I support HFX Wanderers because I'm originally from Halifax, and I probably will continue to support them. But, like, Moncton is one of the cities that's on, like, the expansion list and targets for the Canadian Premier League, allegedly. If Moncton gets a team, I'm almost for sure going to support that team because that's the team that's here, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But, like, I've never come closer to just rage quitting on a team.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can forgive bad draft picks. I can forgive mismanaging injuries. I can forgive bad signings. I can even forgive bad trades. You do not trade your best player for anything.
Mm-hmm. So for those who are less football inclined, like DeAndre Hopkins, like where is he on in the spectrum of the league, in your opinion?
I would argue that he is the best wide receiver in football.
Yeah.
Maybe second best. There's a lot of debate between him and Julio Jones.
Okay.
But for, like, raw talent, he is at worst in the top 3.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And, like, this is basically, like, dismantling, like, now we can get you ranting on Bill O'Brien and, like, wasting teams, even though, like, they have a great core, they've had a great development system and everything like that. But, like, yeah, like, this as GM, like, he's trading away a piece where it's like, no, like, you have a core that has been able to consistently compete and win at least one playoff game year after year.
You have one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks in the league now, in Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
You have one of the most dangerous deep threats in the NFL when he's healthy in Will Fuller.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why Fuller gets to be so friggin' open is because your WR1, your top wide receiver, is the best wide receiver in football. And you traded him for a running back you are hoping can give you the kind of season he had a year or two ago before injuries slowed him down, where he was one of the best running backs. But if you don't get that out of this guy, this trade is an abject and absolute failure because you got no secondary assets to recover it.
It's like you're trading.
I think they got a 3rd-round pick was the other part of the trade. I don't have the actual trade up here, but if I remember it correctly, it was Hopkins and a lower round pick for Johnson and a 3rd.
Mm-hmm. So,
Sean, can you double check the details of that trade for me just to make sure that I have that correct?
Mm-hmm. It's basically one of the worst atrocities you can commit as a GM, trading a sure thing for a maybe thing.
It's not even a sure thing for a maybe thing. If it was a sure thing for a maybe thing and there were additional assets involved, I wouldn't care so much. I'd still be mad because I don't think you trade the best player in their position in the NFL for any reason.
Yeah. There's no reason anywhere in any time or universe that the Oilers trade Connor McDavid. You don't do it.
See, but that's like best player in the league sort of thing. I think we have to go to like a different thing. This would be like if the Kings had traded Andrei Kopitar in his prime, trading the best defensive forward in the NHL in his prime.
Okay.
You know, because that's the thing about football is because a roster is so large, it's not just necessarily a best player in the league sort of thing. Each individual position has so much sort of movement in it that it's a little bit more fluid than that. Because, like, the Texans' receiving core is still very good, even having traded Hopkins away. But you went from having an elite receiving core to having a very good receiving core by trading one player.
Yeah.
It would be like that's the thing is I don't think it correlates one-to-one because of how football and hockey work, but it would be like if you have the best power play quarterback in the league, one of the best offensive defensemen in the league, if you have Brent Burns in his peak point scoring form, you don't trade him.
Yeah.
You go for it.
Unless a team gives you the sun, moon, and all the heavens.
Yeah, like that conversation usually starts with like one of the best 5 players on your team in a first-round pick, something like that.
Yeah, and the Texans didn't even get close to that. Do you have the trade there, Sean?
Yeah, I do. So the Cardinals get DeAndre Hopkins and a 2020 fourth-round pick. In return, the Texans get running back David Johnson, a 2020 second-round pick, and a 2021 fourth round. So essentially, they just said, we'll give you a fourth this year if you can add a fourth next year, and then a second-round pick on top of that.
Yeah, so they traded Hopkins for David Johnson. Sorry, I said Duke Johnson. I believe Duke Johnson's already a running back on the Texans. That'll get confusing next year. You traded one of the best wide receivers in football for a maybe starting running back and a second-round pick. When running back wasn't even that much of a point of concern because you had a bunch of young guys and you didn't know who was going to come out of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
You had a tandem. You had one of the most mobile quarterbacks in NFL history and a receiver he had a connection with. You just don't. It's just one of the, it's a rule. It is an unwritten rule of the game. You don't break that up.
Yeah, you have your core, you don't fix something that isn't broken like that.
It would have been the Pats trading Gronk in the middle of the dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Just completely ill-advised.
You don't trade your quarterback's best target.
Yeah. No.
Could you imagine if Golden State wins a championship, says, good, we don't need any more, and then just trades Thompson and or Curry?
It wouldn't have been Curry because Curry was the main one.
That
would be like they get Durant, they win a championship, and then they go, okay, we've won a championship. No more. We're gonna keep Steph because he's our guy, and we're gonna keep Clay because Clay is sort of like Durant light, and we're gonna get rid of Kevin Durant now that he's won us a ring.
Yeah, they don't it's not maximizing the worth of your assets there, especially when they have that chemistry together.
It's just nonsense. And some people are saying that it's a money concern. Pay the man, move other pieces.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah. So why do you think we've had you rant about Bill O'Brien on here before, and now that he's the GM, he basically has power over everything the team does at this point.
Yep.
How has he possibly been allowed to assume this position?
Because he's ownership's guy.
So what do you mean by ownership's guy?
He gives them what they want.
Which is?
He has given them winning season after winning season, full crowd after full crowd, and guaranteed them at least a home playoff game 6 of the last 7 seasons, might be 5 of the last 7.
Yeah. So they're basically saying that they're cool with the status quo of being a mediocre upper echelon team as opposed to getting someone who can put them over the top.
I don't know if it's that they're necessarily okay with that because last year the Texans did make adjustments to try to get over the hump. If I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the exact timeline, but I believe they added Kenny Stills. If you can double check the Texans roster for me, Sean. Who Stills is an all-pro wide receiver, and he was the 3rd wide receiver on the Texans depth chart. They brought him in because Will Fuller, who's their deep threat, their WR2, had been facing a lot of injury issues, so they wanted to have a replacement for him, and then essentially an all-pro receiving core if Fuller was healthy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Kenny Stills.
So they were okay with going for it. But the thing that's happening is every single year Bill O'Brien does well, gets to the playoffs, something tragic happens, and it's always something tragic because this year the Texans blew a massive lead against Kansas City.
Yeah.
In Kansas City. They were ahead by 21 or 24 points before the first quarter was over.
Yeah, to the eventual Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, and then lost the game 55-34 or whatever.
Yeah. off of decisions that were very clearly Bill O'Brien's fault.
Yeah, just terrible decision making. But the thing is, every single year there's little things. And I guarantee you the impetus of this trade was Bill O'Brien goes to them and they're like, well, why were you not able to get it done? Well, if I'd had a running back I'd had more confidence in to go for it on 4th and 1, we would have gone for it and then we would have won. Okay, go get your running back. I want David Johnson. What's the cost? DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, well, I still have Will Fuller and Kenny Stills and a solid tight end core. But I can't just trade you Hopkins for Johnson 1-to-1 because David Johnson's not equivalent. We'll throw in a second-round pick, which is almost for sure a roster player because that's how the NFL draft works. And Bill O'Brien probably looked at that and said, my wide receiving core will probably still be very good. I'll have a running back I'll have confidence in, and I'll get to fix another deficit by getting rid of one player who may or may not cost a lot of salary down the line. Because
you couldn't have even got a first out of it?
That's the problem, is he definitely could have gotten better assets. This was definitely a case of him having a guy he'd seen and had faith in and made a trade for that guy. Mm-hmm. Which is, there's other layers to this that sort of matter. Like Arizona's in the NFC, so it's not like we're going to have to play them in the playoffs or anything like that unless it's a Super Bowl. But like the destination's fine. The return's not okay. Not for a player of that caliber.
Yeah. Like, especially that they, like, I know it's like semantics, like in the grander scheme of things, but the fact that they gave up a draft pick as well, like you would have think.
That's my thing. I think if the trade was Johnson, a second this year, a fourth next year for just Hopkins, I think people look at that trade and say, that's a bad trade, but you can see the wheels turning. You know, our wide receiving core is still going to be, like I said, wide receiving core still be very good. We get to address another need with the second round pick. We get a running back that Bill O'Brien has faith in.
You don't put too many eggs in one basket in that situation.
But then you can, like I said, you can see the wheels turning because like a 4th round pick can make the roster. So is this a way for you to go for it this year, and then if you still don't get there, add depth for next year, and then you get back-to-back runs out of it? But I think the fact that you give up a 4th this year for the 2nd this year just negates that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
if the argument you're making is that your 4th round pick this year is not good enough for you to get a player to solidify your roster, what about the 4th round pick next year is any different?
Yeah. No, that's fair. And also, like, it's just reinforcing the fact that, like, they're putting their franchise's, like, life in, or their franchise's current standing in the face of a guy that, like, in the hands of a guy who just can't get it done, whether it's coaching or in the front office. He can't build and or coach a winner here. He just can't.
No. And then the thing is that we're seeing that he is an abject failure at both roles.
Yeah.
Because his teams crumble the second there's any pressure in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know how to manage his players. He's way too predictable. He's way too formulaic as a coach. How is he as a GM? He's reckless and committed to his vision of the franchise. Guys like that destroy franchises.
Now, if this season, say the season goes almost identical to this upcoming season, whenever it happens, goes the same way as it did last season and apparently the seasons before that as well. Do you think he finally gets fired after that, or do you think management still sticks with him?
I think Bill O'Brien gets at least 2 seasons.
Really? Even after all this?
I think he gets this season, and I think that he'll get another season because I think that he'll put some leverage into, well, the Hopkins trade isn't done yet. You have to let me see if I can make something out of this 4th round pick. If my gamble was correct, that I fix the problems now, add the depth next year, then we win. I think that given that if they weren't going to fire him after the Kansas City game and they haven't already fired him for trading their best player, he's going to get another season out of this.
Yeah.
Because, Sean, can you look up Bill O'Brien, like Houston Texans, like the seasons they've had under Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
And you'll see the horrifying pattern, because it's a pattern, with the exception of the one dark season we don't talk about. Because in the midst of Bill O'Brien's tenure, where he's won a bunch of games, we had one season where we went 2-14. No explanation. Well, everyone was hurt was the explanation for it, but
Okay. Yeah.
We'll just give Sean a second to get it back up, but like.
But no, like it just seems like they're definitely like this current management group, from the top dog down to Bill O'Brien, is like not good at recognizing patterns and realizing that a change needs to be made in that personnel role. And Bill O'Brien's not the guy.
The team has been so good historically at getting value out of nothing. Like, Arian Foster is one of the most endearing players in franchise history, and he was an undrafted free agent at Tennessee that became the best running back in the league for 3 years.
Yeah.
Because the Texans are good at developing and finding diamonds in the rough, but then they get rid of all of their quality players and suffer.
Yeah.
Do you have it there, Sean?
Yeah, I do. So over his 6 seasons with the Houston Texans, the coach. So he has a grand total of 6 playoff games played, only 2 playoff wins. He had only 1 losing season, though, where the Texans went 4-12 in 2017.
4-12, that was the one. I said 2-4.
Yeah, that's brutal. But no, he doesn't have the playoff wins.
Yeah, and if you look at the seasons where he did win those playoff games, they were first-round playoff wins that were immediately followed by crushing defeats. I think both times to the Patriots.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't give details on the scores or whatnot, but holy crap, that's brutal.
Yeah.
He has a fun tendency to go 9-7, though.
He gets outcoached at every position, and that's the other thing, is Sean just mentioned it. How many of those seasons are 9-7 seasons?
The first 3.
So, and they won the division 2 of those years, right? They made the playoffs 2 of those years, I think?
Yes. Yeah, two of those 3 years they made the playoffs. In total, the 4 of the 6 years he made it.
Yeah, so, but the thing is, 9-7 is a terrible record. You're making the playoffs because your conference or your division sucks.
Yeah.
And division champions get to go anyway. So it's not even that Bill O'Brien makes the playoffs consistently. It's that Bill O'Brien is the champion at being king shit of Turd Mountain.
Yeah. And so, his value as an executive and a head coach is definitely getting very much overinflated by his quality of competition.
His only value as a GM, as a coach, is that he makes the playoffs and generates an extra game of revenue.
Well, and the thing, where my mind goes to here is, we see it all the time, where one little thing saves a coach's career, and people give them the benefit of the doubt. I think of Mike Babcock last year with the Leafs, and how everyone says that game 5 that the Leafs stole in Boston bought him another 6 months or whatever. And it's just little things like that. So now people look on paper and they say, well, he made the playoffs 4 or 6 times, and of those times he has 6 playoff games.
Yeah, but he's 2-4 in the playoffs. If you think about that realistically, that means if one game had gone his way, he's 500 in the playoffs.
Yeah. It's you got to identify, this is why you got to look at all those underlying factors. And this goes across all sports of you could say how many years can you say we were so close, we just need one more year, or we just need another kick at it, or we need to make one more move and we're there. And eventually you just got to say the people that are running the ship aren't capable of getting us over.
It's been 3 or 4 years for O'Brien. And the thing is, even the playoff statistics don't reveal the actual agony of it. This year, we beat the Patriots. We had the tiebreaker over the Pats. And we were in a position where if we won out, and we would get a bye. And then we didn't have to play Kansas City until the AFC Championship game if we even got that far.
Yeah.
And then the Texans lost a game to a sub-500 team and pissed away the bye.
Yeah. So even
and then had to play Kansas City.
Yeah. So like the doom was starting even before the playoffs began there.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure one of those 9-7 years that he made the playoffs, that the Texans were like 9-4, and he lost the last 3 games.
Yeah, like you get into that position where like you could have, like, when it comes to those games that really matter, that like even like before the playoffs, like to get yourself that bye, to avoid the extra hurdle that could help your longevity and everything like that. He's not even good at securing that. So, yeah.
Well, even like a lot of the time, like from what I find, and just something I've been thinking of lately, is how there's always clear and obvious signs as to why you should fire a coach, and sometimes those are the obvious signs for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like in the case of the Texans, this has been building up for a long time, and I mean, he hasn't been fired, but like how far away and how far down the road is that realistically?
It's not even that he wasn't fired; he was promoted.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of firing.
Yeah. So just going to see what it's going to take for the Texans to finally say, okay, that's enough. We're going to move on to something else. And we have to move on to something else because we have a lot more to talk about here. Let's talk about the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or Mortal Kombat. Or Mortal Kombat. What number? I'm not a video game guy. How many Mortal Kombats are there?
This would be 12.
Mortal Kombat 12, which is basically what Dana White is trying to create with his new invention, Fight Island, which is real, and the infrastructure is being built in a undisclosed location. Yeah.
That's a little sketchy.
This doesn't really surprise me a lot. I thought about it, and it surprised me a little bit at first that that they're still doing this at this point. But like, if you look at the UFC's history, they've done a lot of things flying by the seat of their pants.
Oh yeah.
But the issue, at least, or unless I'm misreading what Dana White is trying to build the UFC into, and I think this is spoken with actions, like the fact that like their current deal is interlocked with ESPN, which eventually ended up being the downfall of the timeline we're about to kind of look at right now. But with being on ESPN, like I'm assuming that like Dana White said, like, okay, I want UFC to be considered as one of the major sports brands in the world. And it's come a long way, and I think it's a very highly respected thing. Like, look at how much, like Conor McGregor, as much as we like to roll our eyes on this show at him, has made the brand, like, they have global icons now that are recognized around the world. They have a huge international audience, which basically like comes with the lineage of MMA itself and everything. But it just seems like, how can you say that you want to do that in one breath and pull, or try to pull, I should say, the things that Dana White has tried to pull in the last 30 to 50 days? Because it has been a roller coaster of false promises, which is basically what I think the Ferguson and Khabib fight is damned to be, with every ounce. Like, considering the amount of things that have canceled that fight. 249, this is the 5th cancellation. It has been canceled by both of them being injured, people missing weight, freak accidents, tripping over a cord because Tony Ferguson likes to wear sunglasses indoors. And now it's a global pandemic that has Khabib trapped in the other side of the world right now.
Well, the thing is, like, we always used to joke about how cursed Jones Cormier was.
Yeah.
And it seems like child's play.
It's child's play compared to this. We have never seen, maybe Mayweather Pacquiao, but that was more because of their own inflated egos, and that was money issues and everything. This has been injuries and like literally like the worst case scenario. It's like you could wrap the two of these guys up in bubble wrap and put them in a bouncy room for 6 months before this fight and not let them out. Bring them their meals, bring them cold soup and water. That's all they're allowed to drink. And
but then Ferguson will take his eye out with the fork, and then the fight won't happen.
Exactly. Something's going to happen to make this fight canceled.
The thing is, though, I have a lot of respect for Dana White for the Fight Island thing because I think Stylebender could take Sub-Zero.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And at first, it's like
$1,000. Fight Island is Fiji.
Somewhere.
But like the Fijian government does that. They give out like huge sums of money to bring productions there. And I would not be shocked if Fiji is like one of the islands of Fiji is Fight Island.
Yeah, but it's in one breath. It's just like as a fight fan, I'm totally on board with like do whatever, sell your kidneys, sell your firstborn child. Let's make Khabib Ferguson happy because it needs to. But at a certain point, it just doesn't seem like Dana White knows when to stop with it's a pandemic. The country is shut down.
One of your superstars lost their parents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rose Namajunas, who was supposed to fight on the UFC 249, had to pull out because of that.
Personal reasons, found out afterwards. Horror.
Yeah. And
was it her parents or her grandparents?
It was it just said like multiple older relatives in
grandparents, great aunts, whatever. But
yeah, something like that.
Family members, stop trying to buy a private island.
Yeah. So he basically goes from I think it started out like the fight was supposed to be in Brooklyn. Obviously that got canceled because New York is in the worst state of emergency it's been in 100 years, or since, well, not 100 years, maybe since 9/11 or something like that. Probably it's the last time it's been in this much of a panic. And so obviously that's not there. Obviously, the fallback on that is always Vegas, because Vegas is the fallback
home.
It's home. It's home for Dana. It's home for the UFC. It's like the fallback for any fight that falls through at the location that they're trying to have it at.
Nevada shut down.
Nevada shut down. There's rumors that it might go over in Russia. It might go to Dagestan. It might go to Florida. It might go to Abu Dhabi, where
Fight Island.
Basically trying to put it in the few places that basically say, fuck you, your rules don't apply here. And enough of that, and it comes down to the parents of the UFC, ESPN, and the parents of those parents in Disney basically have to tell them
no.
No. We're a big brand. We play it safe here, and we're gonna
bad children get out of the sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. So
the thing that I don't get is if Dana White wants the UFC to be such a legitimate sports enterprise, his desperation looks terrible.
Exactly. I would admire this move if the UFC still was where it was at 10 years ago, to an extent, because I think you should always take the public health and safety of your player, of the people that you employ and everything. I know they weren't going to have fans, and it's all you need is a couple of judges ringside and the fighters and everything like that. It's only 5 people. It's but yeah, you're also talking about fighters who have to cut weight, which puts your immune system at risk, which makes you more vulnerable if you happen to catch
train, which puts you at worst in a home gym with a couple of trainers and a coach, and that's more people. And then if you still want to make money, you have to broadcast the events. You need to have production staff. Like, people seem to think that it's like, oh, we are going to have like, there'll only be like 6 people in the ring and at ringside with the judges. Yes, but the background is the issue. You need to have production staff. You need to have trainers and coaches. You need to have representatives of the UFC. You need to have...
And it's 2 guys laying on top of each other and hitting each other and exchanging bodily fluids and everything like that. And even if you test them, even if you tested them like every 2 hours right up to the time that they walk up, they strip off their sweats, strap the gloves on, and face off across one another, you're still at risk whether they took a negative test 2 hours ago or 7 hours ago or something like that, because you can be asymptomatic. You can be... That's why they say, like, they don't come get tested for COVID unless you have symptoms, because when the infection starts is so delayed from when you could actually come into contact with someone who has the virus.
And the thing is, like, even if there just isn't adequate testing and someone only has minor symptoms like fevers and sweating, you will immediately transmit it to the person you're fighting. There's no way around it.
Yeah. So it's just...
It's reckless.
It's reckless. It's reckless. And I understand, like, the point, like, the business mentality. We want to keep going. And, like, again, it's not shocking behavior from Dana White, because he's always been that guy to be the bull that pushes through when everyone else is kind of, like, laying back and say, like, nope, we're going to play it safe. Like, they don't play it safe. That doesn't surprise me coming from the UFC. But the thing is, understand what you are. Are you an organization that flies by the seat of your pants, that's always going to do these reckless things that are going to get this bad media attention for you? Or are you going to be what you appear to be doing and is trying to build something into a major sport, because you're with the biggest sports network now, ESPN, which is where you have to go
through. That's the thing that bothers me. That's the thing that bothers me, is the UFC is behaving the way you behave if you are desperate to be the only game in town. The UFC is making this play because they would be the only thing people have to watch. You're a legitimate sports enterprise now. You deal with ESPN.
Yeah. Now, I know there is one thing to that like they have to put on a certain amount of events a year in order to get like their full payment deal with ESPN.
Yes, this is something I was going to bring up though, where I don't know if it's entirely the UFC's fault, because a lot of these cases have clawbacks where the organization that cancels the events violates their share of the contract and then owes reparations to the other side. We don't know for sure, but there's speculations that that's what happened with the city of Tampa Bay and WrestleMania this year, that the WWE said that WrestleMania was going to go on as planned, and Florida didn't issue any shutdown orders. So it looked like they were going to have WrestleMania in Tampa. And then the city of Tampa Bay was just like, essentially came out and said, I don't remember if it was the city of Tampa Bay or if it was WWE that came out and said, one of the two parties came out and said, there's no intention to cancel at this time. And people got really upset at them. And then they essentially pointed the finger and were like, well, don't get mad at us. Get mad at them. So there might have been a clause in the contract saying the UFC had to make so many events and that only ESPN had the rights to remove events from the calendar.
Yeah.
So Dana White might have been forced to look for all of those locations. And then when ESPN canceled it, then it was canceled. But the fact that ESPN canceled their deal and then a couple hours later he came out and said, oh, don't worry, Fight Island is real. We're still doing that.
And we're going to have a fight. They're trying to get one for May 9th now.
See,
like a month, like a
that's
couple
where
weeks
you
later.
Become the joke. That's where you became the joke.
Yeah. And if you
Before
don't,
that, you had plausible deniability that you had to fulfill a contract for ESPN. Once ESPN lets you off the hook, and then you insist on buying an island,
yeah, and
they're not literally buying an island, but functionally buying an island,
mhm.
you lose all of your credibility.
Yeah, and you know what else makes it amateurish? Like, I'm not sure what like the specific, like every minute detail of that contract is. That like you need to be prepared for this, and the fact that you didn't negotiate something where like you don't have to be this desperate to try to put on a fight during a pandemic just to cover your ass for your TV deal. If there's not some fail safes built in there,
You should have you should have an act of God clause, like insurance companies do.
Yeah, that makes you look more amateurish than anything Dana White has tried to pull over the past month or so, and will
like,
apparently continue to try and pull because they're proposing this event for May 9th, which it's not going to happen. I can't.
And like, while we're on the topic of this, every other sports league is committed to canceling except Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Everybody else is saying, if we get a chance to do it, we'll do it. If we don't, we don't. Major League Baseball is trying to find a safe way to get the season started, where they're talking about just having the season essentially be spring training, which is an absurd idea that's also not going to work, and they need to smarten up too. Yeah. But like, it's just bad. It makes you look bad, and all of the press is bad.
Yeah.
You don't want to appear in the headlines as the organization that doesn't care. And you're the one organization right now that doesn't care.
It's true. So with that, I think we'll move on to our next topic. Just a couple more things before we wrap up the show here. One thing I didn't want to mention, the last kind of like mainstream thing we had here was very nice tribute. The WNBA draft was held on Friday, and Gigi Bryant, the son of the late Kobe Bryant, who they both went down in that, or daughter. Sorry, I'm sorry. I did not mean that in that way. Sorry. Late daughter of Kobe Bryant, who they all went down in that horrible helicopter crash. They also honored the other young female basketball players that were traveling to a game unfortunately during that crash and everything like that, but also made Gigi Bryant a honorary draft pick of this year's WNBA draft. So a nice tribute to Kobe Bryant's daughter there, which is very well received, of course, by Vanessa Bryant as well. She had a nice response to that and everything, and the right thing to do, because like it's not like Gigi wasn't showing any promise. Like she was very much like at her age group, she was a highly touted female basketball player, and of course,
she had like a really notable quote. I think Kobe did an interview where he was talking about his daughter, and he was talking about a time where a fan asked him when he was going to have a son to continue his legacy, and she just looked him right in the eye and said he already has a kid who's going to continue his legacy.
Yeah, that was on Kimmel when and he's like he's like, oh, Kobe, when are you gonna have a son so you can continue the legacy? And he's like, Gigi's just sitting over there. He's like, I got this. I'm gonna be the legacy. So yeah, and she probably would. Like it's not hard to envision her probably having
being to the WNBA what her father was to the NBA.
Yeah, you have probably the best coach you could possibly have to get you there. So,
although what's funny too is like moving from basketball to hockey and women's sports particularly, we did get good news this past week too, which is that the NWHL is planning on expanding to Toronto for next season.
They weren't already in Toronto?
No, they didn't do the expansion after the CWHL collapsed.
Oh, right. Well,
they said that they had plans to do it, but they hadn't confirmed it. And then they played a season with 5, and then their next scheduled season is supposed to be 6, adding Toronto. They still don't have an agreement with the National Women's Hockey Players Association, but or Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, PWAPA. Yeah. But hopefully everyone will sort that out and it will get turned in. It would be really nice if the NHL would start sponsoring that league and form an official partnership with that league. Ahem.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm skeptical that that's high on the priority list right now, unfortunately, with everything else
right now, no, nothing's high on the priority list, which is, I think, what made the Gigi Bryant moment so good at the WNBA draft is that everyone's miserable right now.
Oh, yeah.
And it
We're
sort
lacking
of
those moments.
It sort of puts a little closure on the first crappy thing that happened in this so far very crappy year.
Yeah.
It's sort of mind-blowing when you think about it, but there's a very real chance that 2 of our top 10 stories of the year happened in the first 3 months of this one.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It might be that all of our top 10 moments might happen in the first 3 months of this one because there won't be anything else to play. Like, who knows? We'll talk about that at the end of the show here. I do want to take a quick side here to bring Sean in. I know he'll have the list. UNB and STU had their athletics awards. I believe it was like last week or the week before. They did them online and everything. Maybe we can run through some of the names on that list there, Sean. Some notable names.
Yeah. Here, I'll start off with St. Thomas. So, Rookie of the Year, it was pretty hands down. Well, for me, it was Carolyn Petrosky. So now, just to put it in perspective, how good she was, though, she had similar numbers to that of Rebecca Clark, Camille Scherger. She was in the top 4 in save percentage with a .938, and you could really tell as the season went on, Peter Murphy, like she was the one that Peter Murphy would go to in the tougher games, and her record shows it. Whereas Hunter might have gotten easier matchups, but both goals were phenomenal. But Petrosky getting that's only fitting. She started the most games and ended up being the go-to. Mariah Carey most improved. I think she had like 15 goals this year in 28 games. So like she's pretty good, and I think she still has another year of eligibility. And the next 2 were very obvious, quite obvious. Defensive player Alex Woods, MVP, Captain Alexic, and I think that's only fitting because she's graduating anyway. Now, UNB, I know, do a different format for their awards. I know that they don't necessarily have a Defender of the Year, but I know that they do give a similar award to Jenna McLean. But up on their Instagram, Marley Vandenutselaar getting Rookie of the Year. I think she sort of stepped in, and Coach Sarah Hillworth really trusted her with some tough minutes against some very tough lines, and I thought she did a great job adapting to it. Team in Black, I think that's kind of like a team who best embodies what it means to be a Red. I think is what it's going for.
Yeah, the red and black awards. I think there's one for each team in UNB or something like that. Yeah,
makes sense. That one goes to Hannah Matchett in her final year. She's graduating, and then team MVP. Any guesses?
Oh, Stratton.
Yeah,
Slam dunk. Stratton.
Yeah. So sorry, Kaylee, I kind of just left you there. I know you weren't as involved this year, but either way.
That's what happens when you're in a different city.
Yeah, it sucks, and you sort of lose touch. But I mean, Stratton, I think UNB's got a really good one here because she's going into her 3rd year next year, and she's kind of she has all the tools. She's got the size, the speed. She can stick handle. She can do it all, and she did. So I thought that was a well-deserved award for her. Can't really find the other awards here, but I'm pretty sure Sydney DesRochers getting the leadership award.
Yeah. On the men's hockey side, I know Tyler Boland won MVP for UNB men's hockey, led all players in scoring across the country, so pretty much a slam dunk thing there. Sam Harvey winning Rookie of the Year for them, obviously best rookie goaltender in the league and everything, although it's hard to kind of call him a rookie considering the levels that he's played at and everything. The fact that
the fact that he's won a Memorial Cup.
Yeah.
The fact that Johnny and I routinely see him in our nightmares.
Yeah. Was that because of Mooseheads? Yeah.
See, it almost feels like he's just going for every single possible trophy. He got a Memorial Cup, and he said, "Screw a Calder Cup. screw the Stanley Cup. I want to win a U Cup.
U Cup.
And he's going to. That team is
One day.
bonkers.
Yeah. Do we have top male and female athlete for both UNB and STU?
You mean like overall?
Overall, yeah. Overall.
Yeah. Just give me a moment here. Athlete of the year. I believe athlete of the year for St. Thomas went to Christian Christie, men's volleyball. But that's the second time he's got the athlete of the year award.
Yeah.
So congrats to him. Like that's probably not something a lot of people do. I'll just take a look at the UNB one here.
Yeah.
Male athlete of the year, Tyler Boland, men's hockey.
Oh, did he win? I didn't know he won male athlete of the year overall. Okay.
Yeah,
and then he was the best player in the country.
Yeah.
Justine Como from women's curling.
Yes.
Female athlete of the year.
Yeah. And because
national silver medalists, I believe.
Female athlete of the year went to Vanessa Sophie of women's basketball.
Okay.
For St. Thomas. So
for St. Thomas, yeah. Yeah, no, UNB women's curling was fortunately the only national championship not affected. Like I know basketball had played out before the pandemic really kicked in. But like of course we have like the University Cup, both men's and women's hockey championships were canceled.
In progress was the crazy part to me.
Yeah,
they only played like their first games.
I assumed that with all the teams there, they would have just played the remainder of the tournament behind closed doors, but they didn't. They literally went just like full lockdown.
Well, the thing was for the hockey that like they couldn't have that option is that Hockey Canada pulled the refs.
Yeah.
Once you don't have refs, you don't. That was the thing.
Yeah.
That took away. I'm sure they probably would have played it under closed doors, but if you don't have refs, you can't play the game. So.
And the curling event got to take place because the teams had already played a few games, but they were all already in Portage La Prairie in Manitoba, where there were still no reported cases at that point in time. And I believe they were all like sequestered in their hotel and stuff. And then
empty like empty crowds and everything like that. And UNB ended up taking home the silver medal. They fell. I'm not sure if it was to Alberta. I forget who took the gold in that one. But they took home a medal there, and just of course, like getting female athlete of the year for the Reds. Well deserved. It's nice to see like curling being like regarded so highly by our local varsity sports here.
It was sort of a neat thing too because like people don't really talk about university level curling, even though realistically it's like the second or third highest level of competition like globally.
Yeah, it was cool that I have access and I'll get like notifications from the UNB Reds Twitter account, and with that being the only sport going on Reds wise for like that week and a half and whatnot, with everything else being canceled, like surely during that time it probably would have been dominated by the men's hockey potentially winning another University Cup and everything like that, but the women's curling really got to take over there and everything like that. And they got a pretty cool spotlight before everything else kind of went to the darkness there.
And there was like a lot of like pride around it too, in a very surprising way, which I like because it's sort of Canada's other sport. Was that like a lot of people were talking about it, I obviously haven't been in Fredericton very much, but like, as early as last year, Andy was talking about the quality of the team because I believe UNB hosted last year. I want to say, and it was just sort of nice for it to be like not only center stage, but for people to really seem to care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what happens when all the other sports kind of like fall around you and everything like that. When you're limited and everything, what people will rally around and everything. So with that, I think we'll just last thing with local sports, some big recruiting happening on the men's and women's hockey side for UNB. Sean, tell us a little bit about the women's recruits here.
Well, there honestly hasn't really been much information. The really big one was Emma Giordano. They announced this one back in November. but she's a right shooting defenseman, and from what I understand about her, she's a really big piece to this puzzle for
Okay.
UNB women's hockey. I see you chuckling there.
Sorry, I am very distracted.
But the team feels that she's one of the missing pieces. Now, UNB, like a problem that they run into all the time is that they can't score, and when they do score, they put up stinker defensive games, and it just doesn't even matter. So I think what they're hoping is that Giordano brings a bit of a two-way presence to the game. And the fact of the matter is that they're also starved for right shooting blue liners. Like they have Jenna McLean, Emma Borbandy, but she was hurt for the last little bit of the season. So it's much needed depth for the team. And like overall, I think that if you can get a player of that caliber, so someone who was apparently highly touted in the recruiting process, I think for UNB you're doing just fine. You're just trying to build around the core that you already have and trying to improve on it. So I think she's going to be a core piece for this team.
Cool. And with the men's hockey recruits, our good friend Victor Finlay announcing some huge recruits for UNB men's hockey as well. Sean?
Yep. Yeah, there were a few there. We talked before the show about Austin Keating.
Yeah, from the Ottawa 67s, back-to-back 89-point seasons. As something that Victor pointed out, like there's a potential that like even though that they have like his rights as far as like U Sports goes, that like it's not guaranteed that he will be on the team because like there's definitely potential for professional contracts and everything like that. But we'll have to see. But if he does get on the team, like that's basically, I think, Kayla, you want to put it the way that you put it?
Yeah.
Like with Gardner going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The University Cup got canceled this year, so Gardner is trying so hard to make a roster that will win a championship so hard it might count for two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just dominating as far as like recruiting goes every single year. We've seen like some strides, like Acadia has definitely made some strides with their recruiting, and it's like it's showing.
The thing with Gardner is he's plucking from everywhere, right? He's got two guys from the OHL. We know we got a guy from the Q. He's picking up top level recruits from every available prospect pool.
Yeah, which was one of the things when we had Victor on before, is that like that's one of the things that has made UNB so dominant in the past is the fact that like recruit like players from all over the country want to come play here. Usually like Canada West mostly is where like all the WHL recruits go, and then like out east it's like the Q and everything like that, and then the O gets from the OHL and everything like that. And UNB is one of those few teams that are able that like are up on high on the list for players seeking this kind of hockey from every part of the country. So it's no surprise that we get that. Former cap, a couple other recruits as well there, Sean.
Yeah. Well, next we have Nicholas Gay, and as you were saying, a former captain of the Drummondville Voltigeurs and
St. John Sea Dogs too, right?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, St. John Sea Dogs too. And in 2018-19, this guy got 87 points, 40 goals, and 47 assists. And the following year's points per game was a little off as he got traded midway through, but he still had 66 points in almost just as many games. I think a little less than 66 games played. So yeah. I don't know. Like if you just look at this on paper, like it's a win for UNB. Like you're getting a major point producer.
Yeah, you're just continually like doing what they do every year, and that's just adding more murderers to Murderers Row.
Well,
it's like people under.
Sorry, go ahead. It always seems that every single year we're talking, okay, well, this is as good as it gets, right? Like we're at the tip of the iceberg, but they keep finding ways to get better. Like, how do you do that?
I think one of the things that we forget too is that if they're overage in particular, people tend to really undersell the value of point per game players in junior hockey. because people look at overagers or like post-draft year players that score a point per game and go, oh, well, they're past their draft year, so of course they're that good. But like players who end up performing well in junior hockey the year after their draft year frequently become, you know, middle to bottom six NHL guys, depending on their pedigree. So if you're pulling guys that will more than likely over time develop into solid AHL players, maybe low tier NHL players, you are putting together a university caliber roster that's better than everyone's.
Yeah. Yeah. A bunch of players that eventually become lower tier NHL players or consistent AHL players, aka pretty much every graduate from UNB over the past 3 or 4 years.
Because that's the thing is, like, if you even get a couple players that eventually have like a cup of coffee in the NHL, as they say, like just like, you know, barely scrape that level, you're still talking about players that are in the top 750 players on the planet.
Yeah. And put that down at the collegiate sports level, like, come on. It's almost unfair at this point.
That's the thing I think about the Sam Harvey pickup last year that we didn't really think about was, yeah, he was an overager, but he was insane at the junior hockey level. And a lot of these schools are recruiting, you know, junior hockey cast-offs when Harvey was making junior hockey's best look amateur.
Yeah. And like I would surprise, like that's kind of surprising that like Sam Harvey, like the overage thing would be a factor, because like the fact, like it's a bigger standout that like, hey, you put up spectacular numbers in junior hockey where it's notoriously joked about that nobody plays defense. Yeah. So with that, I think I just want to move in, like, just to kind of close out the show here. This first episode in like kind of like a different time sports wise for us, like for pretty much every sports show on the planet right now. And we are not exempt from that or anything like that. Is everything's kind of in a holding pattern. I've heard that phrase being thrown around with a lot of things lately. A lot of friends of mine that put on music festivals that are supposed to be happening soon. If they're not canceled, they're in a holding pattern kind of thing. And that's kind of where major sports is right now, as far, and especially the NHL and the NBA, considering they're well deep into their season and wondering what the future is going to hold here. I just want to ask both of you is like, where are we at this point? Are we too far gone from resuming the season? And if either the NHL, NBA, or both, I think like they'll probably both follow like similar paths kind of thing right here. I think NHL will probably follow the NBA's lead or something like that. And if we're able to resume the season, like what does it look like, and what does it look like for the future here? I'll start with you, Kaylee.
Bad timing.
Yeah.
right into a yawn.
Right into a yawn.
I think they're done. I think this idea that these championships are going to be awarded for the integrity of the championship is toast. I also hate the NHL using that line. You locked out your season in 04-05. Like, your last non-trophy award happened this side of the millennium.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you're not like the British Open, which is canceling for the first time since World War One.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. Might have been World War II. But one of the world wars.
So you don't think there's a hope?
No, I don't.
No.
I think holding out for it's unrealistic. I think leagues that are due to start will maybe get shortened seasons, likely without spectators.
So what is the main thing to you that makes it hopeless for the NHL or NBA to return? What's the big thing?
Multiple countries. The USA is getting ravaged. We see the stats every day. There are over, I think, 700,000 cases nationwide now. You know, one of their major epicenters for business and tourism is catastrophically falling apart. I shouldn't say that. It sounds really bad, but like New York City is facing this with like a ridiculous level of uncertainty. And I just don't think it's feasible that you're going to arrange cross-border travel, 30 plus cities, all of that. I just don't think it's feasible.
Yeah. Well, at the time, like at this day that we're recording here on Saturday, Trudeau and Trump, the Canadian and American government, striking a deal to keep the border closed for another month, another 30 days. So
the deal came a day after Trump said that he was open to reopening the border because of how well Canada was handling the pandemic. Ontario Premier Doug Ford pretty famously essentially telling them to piss off.
Yeah. And rightfully so. Like the job is not done there. Like the fact that, what was it? Like the stat I saw, like there's over like 1,200 new cases over the last couple of days in Florida, and the city of Jacksonville allowed the beaches to reopen today because, like, of course, like the governors of each state, like that's their power to reopen their state's economy or not. And unfortunately, it's definitely evident that not all the right decisions are being made. And no one knows about a second wave of this thing. That's why we're here in like New Brunswick, for example, like we still extended our isolation to April 30th, despite the fact that over the last 2 days at this point, we've had no new cases.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing that we have to understand is we need to get to a point where we consistently have no new cases, and then we still need to wait another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like we need a point where we get like a week, maybe even 2 weeks of no cases. And then because there's still a 14-day incubation period on this illness, we're still going to have to wait another 2 weeks. People have to be prepared for the reality that things aren't going to start really reopening until places have like a month of no new cases. And even then, places like New Brunswick, like where we are going to have to be extra careful because we import a lot of agricultural goods from Quebec and Nova Scotia, which are getting hit way harder than we are.
Yeah, which is why like Blaine Higgs is being very firm on like nobody in, nobody out, because
there's been talk about the New Brunswick and PEI merging their governmental response to COVID, which some people are on board with, some people don't like the idea of. But I don't think you can coordinate 31 cities in 2 countries in very different stages of the pandemic. Like for the NBA, the only city in Canada they have to coordinate is Toronto, but Toronto is one of the hardest hit places in Canada. And
they are like having no public events until July 1st.
Yeah.
So it's literally illegal. It's literally
same
illegal.
With the NHL, right? Is the NHL has 31 teams in a bunch of places.
And all it takes is for one team to not be able to host events, unless you're going to do all the games like they were talking about, like places like what was it North Dakota or New Hampshire?
North Dakota. North Dakota was a place talked about doing, but I just don't think that's realistic or feasible. You can't, even if you were just like, we're just going to pick, the division winners and that's it. You can't get 4 teams of 35 people to North Dakota right now.
Yeah. So what do you think? We'll get to, Sean, we'll get to you to finish off here in just a moment. What are we holding up then? Like, do you think like these leagues like legitimately think that there is any hope at all, or are these like, is there like a certain date or a point? Like, what are we waiting for here as far as a decision to go ahead or not?
I think data.
Yeah.
I think if we can get to a point where we can show like real quantifiable proof that we are flattening the curve, recoveries are starting to accelerate past new cases in like the next couple of months, maybe the next month or 2, maybe you can still host an abridged playoffs sometime deep in the summer if you're the NBA and the NHL. But, with some projections now saying that some sort of quarantine or isolation order is probably going to have to go on for like up to 6 months, maybe into 2021. I just don't see how you ever get a chance to do this. But like, just like Major League Baseball, the NHL is looking for an unorthodox way to at least award their championship and get something out of it. I think, you know, the NBA would like to do the same. I know that people are already starting to show some worry, but I think that the Canadian-based sports leagues, which are very reliant on their gate attendance for funding, are in the same boat, where like the CPL, the CFL are really looking to, you know, how late can we push the season back before it becomes disruptive? And if we do that, what's the end result going to be? So I think hope is what leagues are holding on to. In a weird way, I don't understand why. I think it's way more honest to just come out and admit, like, if there was ever going to be a reason to not award a championship, it's the NHL. Didn't the NHL not award a Stanley Cup during the Spanish flu epidemic?
Yeah.
That's the last time under this kind of circumstances that it wasn't like held. Yeah.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Like, I know that it's one of those things that doesn't feel good because we want the trophy to be awarded, but the reality of it is it's okay.
Yeah.
You'll come back next year. You'll be as strong as you ever were.
Yeah. It's like, and people might say
you're not getting any revenue out of it if you play.
Yeah.
Maybe TV revenue if the TV stations are willing to follow up their end.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, you're not getting any revenue out of this. You'd be playing behind closed doors, like with a TV broadcast, hopefully.
Yeah.
Like, the reality of it is you're probably not going to play.
Yeah, it's like people might say, like, oh, it wouldn't happen in 100 years that the Stanley Cup or the Larry O'Brien Trophy, that's like a once in 100 years thing. And it's like, well, 100 years ago, we're right on schedule for that right about now, because that's about the last time that something like this happened that caused those things to happen. Sean, we'll end on your thoughts.
Well, I mean, while I agree with Kaylee, I don't think sports are coming back anytime soon. I think
so. We're all in agreement on that.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. However, I do think the nature of a given sport can also impact that. So baseball, for example, I mean, obviously you're still interacting with teammates, you're still interacting with opposing players, but there's less physical contact involved. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, I mean, you have to touch a ball, and obviously you could be transmitting a virus that way. I'm not sure how that would work. I can't speak to that, but I mean, again, it might come down to the nature of the sport, but overall, like, it just isn't safe to play right now. Let alone, we don't know what it's going to be in a month, let alone 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think I don't really have anything much to add to that. I think it's looking pretty bleak. So hopefully we'll have enough news on the inner workings and the outside factors of sports that we can keep going. But I want to thank everyone for listening here. It's good to be back. Yeah. When we did the test call for this the other day, like, we were all saying, like, it's good just to see each other again, whether it's just over a video screen and everything like that. And we hope everyone's been staying safe during this time, and just keep being smart. And we're all going to get through this. And hopefully, if we all do our part, like, we can have actual sports to talk about sooner rather than later. But with that, I think we're going to end it here on Overtime on YouTube, but also on CHSR 97.9 FM in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and online at chsrfm.ca. Thank you for listening this far. We're going to try and keep doing these extended things. We might have to come up with some interesting things to talk about and everything. But we're back.
As long as we can entertain, right? Exactly. Like, we're going to talk about some dumb stuff, but
yeah, we got some ideas of some fun things to make up for some lost time here. So again, on behalf of myself and Kaylee and Sean as well, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.